did I get here? Not here, but here on Earth, in America, in Utah, in a family. Recently, I've been reflecting on that, and so I've spent some time pondering my heritage. So I got to share a story about my grandmother's brother. Name's Waldemar. Not Voldemort, the Harry Potter guy, Waldemar. Waldemar Libbert. When he was a young boy, he and several other deacons were tasked with babysitting for the young parents when they got together for a dance. Now, we'd be wrong if we think boys in the olden days were more grown up and responsible than they are today. So imagine the temptations of a handful of 12 and 13-year-old boys, what they face when there's no Nintendo or Facebook or TikTok or whatever. What do you do with a dozen or so babies while their mothers are out dancing a jig? Now, I'm sure they were told to change the babies if they needed it, and even before Pampers, babies needed changing. Well, that's where the wheels came off the proverbial wagon. They changed all the babies, swapping the cradles, the clothes, the blankets, all of it. When the dance ended, the mothers retrieved their babies and off they went in their wagons and buggies. Now remember, this is pre-cell phone, well, pre-any phone. Needless to say, the night was a night to remember. Eventually, all the right babies ended up in the right beds, and the boys ended up with a great story to tell. Once time passed, then they could look back without their sore backsides. Let me share this story exactly as it is written in my great-uncle's history, written by his daughter Hortense. People traveled for miles to a dance, togged in their best dresses and Sunday pants. They went in sleighs, buggies, and any way they could get there. For a dance then was quite an affair. Even the babies they had to take, and the deacons looked after them to give the mothers a break. Wall thought of the idea to change the babies around, their caps and sweaters and even a new place they found. When the mothers came, the night had been spent. So they grabbed their babies and off they went, and nearly all had got home before they discovered the wrong baby and no telephone. Now, I've wondered if maybe my dad was one of the mixed up babies. So when I wonder how did I get here, maybe just the luck of the cradle. Hopefully, somewhere in the recesses of our minds and hearts, we're blessed to have some special memory of our grandmas. My grandmother Barnes lived a couple 100 miles from us, so it was literally over the river and through the woods. And since I was one of the many dozen grandchildren, I remember her love for me and some peculiar things about Grandma's house and farm, but mostly when we were there, we'd be out on the farm with my cousins. So I don't have many fond memories where she'd take me on her lap and read me stories, or when we'd get dropped off and she'd babysit. That never did happen. But when it came to her food, my memory is crystal clear. She'd fire up what we called cream peas and potatoes, which were small new potatoes right out of the garden and fresh peas in a cream sauce. Oh, I loved that. And she served these cucumbers sliced up in some vinegar mix, and I loved that too. Now there were lots of other things, but the one I wish to drool over right now is her homemade raspberry jam. Grandma's homemade raspberry jam on her homemade bread was a feast by itself. That with a glass of cold milk couldn't and won't be beat, ever. I'm just saying. So, of course, my mother, being the grand woman and daughter she was, carried that mastery into our home as I grew up. I mean both the bread and the jam. My most excellent wife learned both the bread and jam secrets, providing our 5 children this same divine culinary experience. Now, 5 generations later, my grandchildren are building the same memories. Thank you, Grandma, and I love you. Friends my age are relating to this story as so many of us are caring for aging parents. Memories of my sweet Grandma Barnes abound, so sharing this cherished memory is just one of the many. When I finally made it to high school, which I promise I did cross my heart, Grandma came to live with us in Salt Lake City. She'd been living in southern Idaho. As my mother's favorite son and my grandma's favorite grandson, which I reminded them daily, I had a lot of innocent fun with her. Each day when returning home from school, I'd check in with Grandma, where I'd hear about her day and she'd ask who I was and if I lived there. Now, she always claimed to be from Pennsylvania, a place I've always wanted to visit. When she remembered who I was, she'd ask if I needed some money, and of course I always did. She'd pull a 10 or a 20 out of her purse. I'd thank her and be off. Then, passing through the kitchen, which was the only access to my room downstairs, I had to pass my mother, who was usually preparing dinner. She'd reach out her hand, I'd pull the money out of my pocket and give it back. No word needed to be said. The money was returned to the purse when Grandma was unaware, and the next day we would repeat the ritual. Grandma and Mom, I love you.